Welcome to Season 3 of the Miscarriage Rebellion. I am really pleased to have two very special guests with me today, Will and Artie, who we will introduce properly in a minute. As you know, this is Season 3. Season 3 is all around celebrating a decade of impact, a decade of making a difference, a decade of showing up for those who need us to show up for them when it can often feel like no one else understands or gets what you're going through, because for too long we haven't talked about the experiences of miscarriage, pregnancy loss, fertility challenges. For too long, the experience has been shrouded in silence, stigma, and shame. And Pink Elephants is really proud to change that, to break the silence, and to make a difference for those that need us to the most. Today, I have the amazing Artie and Will with me. I've known Artie and Will now, we were just trying to calculate. It's like a good 6 or 7 years. It was during COVID when I first came across a fundraiser on our page where Will had decided he was going to row 3 marathons. And I say row, as in literally row them, as a fundraiser to make a difference and to represent the losses that Artie and himself had been going through. Welcome, Artie and Will.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Awesome. I'm going to start by taking us back there in that moment to the experiences of pregnancy loss, which is what connects us. It's a thread that joins us. I wonder if, Artie, you could share a little bit about your experience with the listeners.
So obviously it's been a journey. We have 2 beautiful girls now, which is, it feels like almost a long time ago where we were in this world, and it was our constant world. So it was around 6 years ago we had our first miscarriage. We had no idea. I was 10 weeks pregnant. I had some bleeding, and all of a sudden I was in the middle of the night. I came home from work originally that day, and I sat there, and Will and I were like, no, this can't be it. And then I woke up in the middle of the night. I had pains. I called the health line because I had no idea what to do. And they said, go to the hospital straight away. And we went to the hospital, and unfortunately that was our first miscarriage. We had no idea. We weren't prepared for anything like that. We got, pregnant straight away. Like, we had been together for 10 years, more than 10 years. We'd been together, I think, for 15 years maybe. So it was pretty rude shock. Then we had that happen, and then subsequently we had 2 more, and then we had a baby that we had to medically abort, which she unfortunately had anencephaly. And then we had our 5th miscarriage just before our daughter Poppy. And it was a hard time. We went through ups and downs as a couple. We were there for each other, but I think in terms of where we were at, it was COVID times, and Pink Elephant was something that, we didn't know about before, and then we found you guys, and you helped us extremely. So, yeah.
There's a lot. 5 losses back to back without much support. That must have been incredibly, incredibly hard to kick yourself up and to keep going. I think that deserves an acknowledgement in itself. And yes, those listening now, you got there. You've got Poppy and Chloe, and you are one of the couples that I love talking about, because there's that sense of so much hope, and you carried so much in that period, and you still picked yourself up. And I think what's not often shared enough is the resilience, the bravery that we are willing to put ourselves through this again and again, because ultimately we just want to hold a baby in our arms, and we deserve so much more. Will, what was it like for you? What's the partner's experience?
It's strange because you want to be as supportive as possible, but also protecting yourself throughout that process as well. I've said it before in that it's the first time as a couple you learn how to grieve together and how you can provide support for each other throughout that process. We so often help each other grieve a loss of a parent or a grandparent, but it's the first time that we were grieving for the exact same purpose. And there are times where it was very difficult because we are almost polar opposites, in Artie being very extroverted and me being introverted, and trying to find how to best and most compatibly grieve that process together. There's a level of guilt that you have, and I think that's just bred through the uncertainty and not being able to provide answers for your partner as to why these miscarriages reoccur. And you just want to help. COVID was a very interesting time because we were isolated from those who could potentially help us. And again, that's why we're so thankful of the Pink Elephant Support Network, because there's a digital resource for this information. We were actually recommended it by the guys from Love to Dream, and Gavin and Hannah, and that was probably the best advice that someone had been able to give me, was to find other people and create that network to support each other throughout that process. But as a partner, there's a void that you're trying to fill for both yourself and your partner through the process.
Yeah. And I've heard that so many times, that duality of just wanting to be there and to fix this for your partner because you're watching them in such incredible pain and you want to make it all right for them, but then also trying to find space for your own grieving style, because often we do grieve differently, right?
Yeah.
How did you navigate conversations and learning that you grieve differently? What was that like for you both?
Well, I think we talked about it because, the day, obviously with the fourth, the babe that had an encephaly, I was in that room by myself. It was like the loneliest day of my life, having to call Will downstairs and tell him that our baby had an issue. And then going home, we had to go to an obstetrician that we didn't know because that's where they sent you. And that person actually let Will in because at the time no one was allowed to go with you. And then we went to our OB. And at the time, for me, I love people around me. And I couldn't have anyone around us. I obviously had Will, who is my guy, and, he was there for me. But I couldn't go for a walk with my friends. I couldn't go and see anybody. Especially in that time where I wanted people to come over. We were getting flowers and all these things, and the flowers, it was so beautiful, but I was sitting in my loneliness. But for Will, he is someone that grieves internally, I think.
Yeah, I withdraw. So COVID was actually better for the grieving process for me. It was also really reassuring to see how many people would disregard the lockdowns to come and spend time with us individually and socially distanced. But there were times where Artie wants to pull everyone around her and talk to people on the phone and whatnot, whereas I just want to shut down from that whole situation. And that's just how we internalise things. Artie generally will speak her thoughts, whereas I will think my thoughts a little bit more.
I think that's a really beautiful way of explaining it. One of you speaks and the other one thinks and internalises. And it is actually really normal. And for anyone listening today, you've got different grieving styles. You've got intuitive and you've got instrumental, and you can actually move through them. It's not necessarily that you stay in the same one the whole time either. And I think what's really beautiful about you guys is you found a way to communicate with each other and to understand that whilst it doesn't feel like that person is grieving in the same way, they are still grieving and we're in this together. Yeah. And that's what's really important. Well, I want to talk a little bit about your decision to change careers and everything else that kind of happened around the losses for you and kind of what led you to that moment?
Yeah. Well, I was in the corporate space and had always been in the corporate space up until it would be our second miscarriage, I believe. I found that I was having a lot of anxiety and panic attacks. And that environment just wasn't suitable for me anymore. And in telling the employer at the time that this just wasn't going to be suitable for me, I felt that I was letting them down because I couldn't give them my best, and it wasn't fair on me to then continue to try and fake it. And so it gave me that opportunity to kind of lean into my emotions. Thankfully, I was able to have a chat with some counsellors throughout that process, but I was just finding myself having panic attacks. And again, when you're in a position where it's heightened stress at home, and then going into a slightly high performance environment, it just wasn't conducive. I decided that I'd leave the corporate space. I now mow lawns for a living. Couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
It was a real perspective shift on what I want to do, and the long-term goal of I want to be able to spend as much time with my kids as they grow up. And that window of them actually wanting to spend time with me is going to be short. And I want to be there as much as possible, as opposed to being stuck behind a desk and a computer. And there were trade-offs. There were massive trade-offs in making that decision and trying to live a simpler life. But it has definitely made a huge difference. We're calmer, we're more relaxed in the way we kind of approach parenting as well. And it means that we can actually be a bit more of a united front at home in terms of sharing the workload.
Thank you. I think it's really powerful when we acknowledge how challenging this can be for our mental health. I know that my journey of losses led me to postpartum anxiety and a whole journey that I don't think at the time I realised that the lack of support and the compound grief of loss after loss, what that did to me and where that led me. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge and share that how difficult these can be and that it can link to poor mental health outcomes, and that we have to kind of advocate for ourselves still because there isn't the support and the connection from external systems on that. So I'm really grateful. I think it's powerful when a partner shares how deeply and profoundly this can impact you as well.
Yeah.
And I hope that any men, partners listening to this that hear this know that there is support out there for you. You don't have to go through this alone. So thank you for sharing that. I really genuinely mean that. Artie, when we went for that walk around Centennial Park, what was that like for you?
Yeah, like I suppose we spoke about it the other day, how I was in the depths of, is this ever going to work? Am I ever going to have the family I want? And I think being with you and walking, and you just were so warm and loving and just brought me into your world. And I think that's what Will and I were talking about. Without you, we wouldn't have been able to, put our grief into, obviously the marathons and all that. It gave us that purpose. And I think that's what we felt, that if we can help one person at least, it will help us. But yeah, I remember walking with you and kind of feeling like I was normal, because at that time, I think I had only one friend that had a miscarriage, and we were a lot younger and we probably weren't there to support her as much as we wanted to. So I think your love and kindness and just taking me under your wing almost, was really, really helpful, and knowing that there was support. And yeah, it was beautiful. Like, yeah, I remember it so clearly.
Yeah. It's like women and partners that I've connected with over the last 10 years, and you guys have a special place in my heart, and I hope you know that. But yeah, that walk around Centennial Park, that's what almost Pink Elephants as well is. It's that peer support. It's being in the company of someone else who just gets it. We don't need to explain ourselves. We don't need to censor our comments. We can talk about things like, why did my baby die, but yet my best friend's still pregnant? Like all those things that generally, if you say outside of circles of people who've been this, they don't necessarily get it, right? So yeah, thank you as well. I want to now move to that purpose element, because I think that's so powerful. And that is actually an element of instrumental grieving. Those needing to do something to feel like they can make a sense out of it. And that's why Pink Elephants exist. Like, this was it for me. In the depths of my grief, I had to do something to make a difference and make sense. So why marathons? Why run? I remember reading this one and being like, what is he doing? Amazing.
It was pretty stupid.
It was epic.
I'd made a stupid comment and a passing comment around the lunch table at work one day, being like, how hard could a marathon on an erg rower actually be? Granted, I'd never actually rode on one. And then that compounded into, let's just try to raise as much awareness as possible for miscarriages. I knew it was going to hurt, and I knew it was going to suck every which way, but you just put up with it. It then manifested into doing 3 rows, because at the time we'd lost 3 babies. And there was just a point of being able to honour both Artie, the babies, and also all those who have experienced miscarriages and early pregnancy losses. I started training pretty impractically, but figured it out that you just have to sit and pull on the thing, and do that for 42 kilometres. So went to it, and then COVID hit. We were fortunate enough to be lent a erg rower so that I could still do it at home. And on the first row, we were in full isolation, so I had to do it via Skype. And incidentally, that week, and that row was probably the hardest, that week Artie had her 4th miscarriage as well. So yeah, that was a hard row physically and mentally. I think we both broke down a lot at the end. But that idea of feeling the pain, it doesn't compare to the emotional pain that Artie and all the other women and their partners go through. And I had to do it 3 times. I think the joy, the highlight of the rowing was on the 3rd row, and we were able to have people around us to do it as well. And Artie actually did the last kilometre of the 3rd marathon. So
Still recovering.
She
coming at the last day.
So she got to experience some of it as well.
Yeah.
But we were fortunate enough to raise around $20,000 for Pink Elephants. And it was the ability to kind of create more of a conversation. And thankful that that conversation has continued.
And that was 2021-ish, 2020, 2021, am I right?
Yeah, 2021,
so.
Yeah, 2021. And so we were tiny then, right, in terms of revenue and size. We were doing our best to grow. I've chatted to Katrina on this podcast as well, our chairperson. We'd had to make decisions to hibernate some of our programs so that we could carry on, but yet we were seeing this 63% increase in demand for support because of COVID, and that we were digital so people could reach us. So I just like that $20,000 was huge. It was huge in so many ways, not just monetary value. I want to acknowledge that it was absolutely a huge portion of revenue that helped us stay afloat during COVID, and that's why we're still here today. But it was huge in so many ways for me, because I saw the impact on the partner as well. the way that you had decided to show up in this way, the way that you'd both come together with your family, and it was a way of having your losses seen. Do you remember? I think it might have been the second or third one, and there was quite a few people that had come. They were supporting you, and because it was meant to be in a gym, and then it was at your house, and they were in and out, and I was watching it from Skype as well, because I live like an hour on the other side of Sydney, and I don't think we could travel even that far. I think maybe we were still in the 5K bubble or something. But yeah, it was profound. Like, what you did was incredible. Like, and I want to acknowledge that. Like, both of you, what you came together and made from your losses, but the difference for other people by showing up in that way. Yeah. Like, it's always going to be a big part of the 10-year history for me.
Thank you.
Elephants.
Thank you. And and for us as well, like, just seeing your friends, your family, and the wider community, that people we didn't know were donating and hearing about it. And it was pretty incredible. But I think it goes to show how many lives Pink Elephant has touched and how many more.
Yeah.
And I think that also creating that conversation and kind of normalising the ability to vocalise the grief that you go through in this whole process, it's something that has grown exponentially since then as well. Hearing stories about aunties of Arties who had miscarriages 50 years ago and still bear the scars of that. And then even as recently as the other day with Carl and Sarah talking about Sarah's pregnancy and her journey, it's just so reassuring to hear that these conversations are being normalised. So that being a girl dad now, knowing that even when the time comes, we don't shirk away from having these kind of tougher conversations and educating our daughters on the way through as well.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like you've gone where I want to go next quite naturally, and I love that. But like, you have the privilege of parenting these two beautiful little girls now. What's your hopes for them in the future? Say the worst happens, say they do face their own fertility challenge or their own losses. What do you want to be changed by that point?
I think, if they could get it into schools, like that would be, like, for instance, I was 30-something and had no idea, like we learn about all the other things at school, but this is never even touched on.
Yeah.
And, at school it's like, oh, you touch a boy and you're pregnant and you're having a baby, that's it, like that's not the case, right? Like for so many. And I think the biggest thing is out of my friendship group, I think 80% now have had at least one miscarriage, which is, it's scary, like and I think it's for our daughters, I think to know that it not it can happen, but it's a thing, and we want them to be educated, and we'll always talk about the babies. Yeah. We're never going to shy away. My nieces, for instance, they know all about it. They're 6 and 8, and they talk about miscarriage. They know. I know it's quite early for them to know, but they saw me in my pain. Yeah. So I don't want anyone to be shocked in life, I think. And I don't want it for anyone to go through it. But, I just don't want anyone to be shocked. And I think just having the conversations is important. But we're here for our daughters, and we're going to continue to help them, I suppose.
No, and I agree. Like, I've got 3 children, as I've talked about before, and 3 that we lost on the way. And those 3 that I get to parent now, my eldest has actually just gone through sex education. And I was like, this is awful. I am so done with this still being about basic bodily function and almost like condom on bananas still. Like, we need to move away from this narrative that you look at a boy and you fall pregnant, don't have sex. You don't want to have children until you've got your career and you've married and you've got your big house and you've ticked all these boxes. We're all sold these dreams because we're told building a family is something that naturally just happens and you'll be okay. Actually, what we know is the complete opposite. 1 in 6 couples struggle to conceive. 1 child in every classroom is born via the aid of IVF. We assume 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss, but we know there's no national data on that, and that's something that Pink Elephants is lobbying for change around. But even if it was 1 in 4 pregnancies, that's still a quarter of pregnancies that end in loss. So arguably, we need to start these conversations much earlier so that there's less shock when they happen. And then those around us know what to say and how to help. And I think that would make a huge difference.
And I think that, frankly, like that proposed 1 in 4 is probably higher in regards to historically, but also future. And we look at the society we live in, is women are getting pregnant later in life, which is you've got to assume a lot more risk throughout that process as well. And so if you're finding out later in life, then it becomes a hell of a lot harder as well to do anything about it.
Yeah.
But I think with our daughters, having had 5 miscarriages prior to our first daughter, those 5 will always be in our mind. And it gives us, particularly me, it gives me the opportunity each day to reflect on those losses when trying to parent our 2 daughters now. And I think I've had more stresses through the losses than I have had in raising the 2 girls. And it's don't sweat the small stuff. Like, things have been a hell of a lot worse. The late nights or the early mornings or the crying and the tantrums, it's been worse. These times will pass, and count it as a blessing. The more they're carrying on, the more they're crying, the tougher it is, the more life they've got.
Yes.
And we can't, the 5 that we've lost, we don't get that opportunity. So be kind on each other and be kind on the kids that we've got.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll make me cry. You say that so well, but it's so true. Like, my 4-year-old's still very much in my bed. I look at her overnight and I can't believe she's actually even here. And I remember the nights where I was kept awake because I was just crying myself to sleep because I just wanted my baby back. I just wanted that baby to have lived. I wanted to have carried that baby to term. And so sleepless nights because of babies crying, I think that's one thing that definitely resonates with our community. It's the parenting after loss.
Yeah.
And I think what's really beautiful about that is also acknowledging that challenges this silly myth that miscarriage is a moment in time, it was only early, therefore it didn't really impact you. Yet you're here as a partner, sitting here today, talking about how you believe that your parenting is different now because of this experience that you've been through.
Yeah, big time. Big time.
I agree. And, where the ultimate thing where people say, just you wait until X. Like, we have a very different perspective. I'm like, when I was up, like, Chloe's 12 weeks today. I don't know where that went, how that happened. I blinked and, those nights, like 6 weeks ago where I was with her every 2 hours are so magical. You know, like, those are the things. And, like, for Chloe, we tried to get pregnant again the second time round. And we almost went the opposite direction, where it took us 9 months to get Chloe, and we ended up going down an IUI path. Things like that, where every pregnancy is different, and the journey is just not straightforward. And then you come out the other side, and you're kind of like, okay, we've got this.
Yeah, and you have.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you did. I think you did an incredible job of holding each other through it. I've witnessed so much strength, resilience, and beauty in that for both of you. And everything you've done for Pink Elephants, I can't tell you how incredibly grateful I am and how much of a flow on that's had for our community and us being here today, being able to celebrate this milestone. I just want a massive thank you.